Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me on Spaces. We are live on the inside, special edition of the show. Welcome to it. Sorry I'm late. Duty calls. I got federal court verdicts. I got Capitol Hill hearings. And I've got lots of updates for you. We just got a transcript from the hearing. We got a transcript in my head. It's 55 pages long. We got Jeff Childers. Is he here? Is Jeff Childers in the room? Is he here? He's not here? Okay, we're going to get Jeff Childers in the room. And then we're going to talk about the court case. We're going to talk about ActBlue. We're going to talk about DNC. So thank you all for joining me on this special edition. I haven't been with you since April. I've been busy on the inside. So we'll talk a little bit about the court case. And my attorney, Jeff Childers, who will be here in a minute, we have a blog post from him. I'm going to read this to you, and then I'm going to read some quotes from the transcript. And I'm just going to go ahead and read this. He's breaking normal protocol. He's my attorney, describing yesterday's critical victory in Project Veritas versus O'Keefe. Yesterday afternoon, several readers quickly sussed out that my legal trip to New York was to defend O'Keefe. And I actually just met Childers in person last week. I've known him for 2 years. I can say a few things. I'm reading Jeff Childers' blog post. Since yesterday, Mr. O'Keefe publicly thanked us for helping defeating Project Veritas' request for an injunction that would have shut down OMG if it had been granted. I won't continue this trend, but I will seize the rare opportunity to give you a taste of the flavor of a post-pandemic litigator's life. The stakes were as high as they get. Among a laundry list of overreaching demands, Project Veritas, that's the organization I founded. Is Childers available? Oh, he's in the room? All right, let's get him on as a guest. Had asked the court to indefinitely forbid OMG from accepting money from anybody who had ever given a dollar to Project Veritas. Had it been granted, the injunction Project Veritas requested would have OMG sidelined through the election. I will not speculate except to note PV's lawsuit was filed in May. You can do the math. The hearing promptly began at 9 a.m., and after a brief failure to serve Mr. O'Keefe, let me just go here. An injunction hearing is quite like a trial, and that's what's interesting. They had me testify just like a trial. Normally, both sides get consumed the entire day of half of witnesses, including PV board member and former president Joe Barton, James's former executive assistant, Project Veritas IT manager, OMG operations director. Current Project Veritas president and board member Ben Wetmore, himself a lawyer, was listed as a witness, but inexplicably was a no-show. It was probably a good decision. He escaped a withering cross-examination that Jeff Childers wrote he took pains to prepare. Former Project Veritas Barton testified, claimed that James had breached certain provisions of the employment agreement, but under cross-examination, the board member could not name a single donor that James allegedly diverted away. When asked why not, he said nobody asked him to bring the voicemails. Barton also admitted the employment agreement would have restricted James from soliciting donations from any former prospective donor in the world, though James had no realistic way of knowing who Project Veritas donors were, even though a donation to OMG would not necessarily hurt PV, and even though PV by law does not solicit donors in 35 states. Most incredibly, under cross-examination, Joe Barton claimed that after the board fired James in February, Barton was not aware of any donor dissatisfaction or of any controversy about how James was fired. So Jeff Childers, my lawyer, that if you're just tuning in, I'm reading a blog post that my lawyer wrote where Joe Barton claimed under oath that he was, quote, not aware of any donor dissatisfaction or any controversy about how James was fired. What's that? We're going to get to Jeff Childers in a moment. I'm just finishing reading Jeff's post. Barton insisted vehemently that his maniacal focus on fiduciary duties left him with no time to keep up with how donors and media reacted. Then after lunch, James took the coolly and credibly answered 2 hours of combative questioning. By the end of a long day, just before 5 p.m., PV racked up its case, leaving no time for us. That meant if we wanted to put our own defensive case, the hearing would have to be continued. The next morning at 11 a.m., the judge took brief argument from both sides. She then delivered a searing 90-minute oral ruling, and I have a copy of that ruling right here. We actually got it an hour ago, so I was reading it to prepare for this. The judge took brief arguments from both sides and delivered a 90-minute ruling. The ruling was too long to summarize, although we're going to read some of it. We must consider this. James published his tweet celebrating the win. You've seen that tweet. Elon Musk responded to it. Usually, I'm reading Jeff Childers' note, usually lawyers tell their clients to keep quiet. To say that kind of tweet makes lawyers nervous. It's like watching your client volunteer to test a new flying machine by being the first person to jump off Niagara Falls wearing something that looks like a cross between a deformed umbrella and a whiskey barrel. But seriously, how can a lawyer stop James O'Keefe from talking? It's very weird to see my lawyer writing a blog post about this. I've never quite seen anything like this before. Project Veritas promptly responded on X with a pugnacious tweet arguing that James was the only impediment to resolving the lawsuit. See, none of this makes any sense. Why? And none of it makes any sense to any of you, obviously. You guys ask me all these questions I don't know the answer to. But their reasoning is that I'm the impediment to them. They have the power to stop the lawsuit by not suing me. So it's really odd that they're claiming that I'm the reason for the lawsuit. A case that Project Veritas filed. Laughably, Project Veritas could dismiss its own lawsuit anytime it wants, but it hasn't. As James and OMG's lawyer, I can tell you with complete confidence that James is not any impediment to resolving the lawsuit. He needs more lawsuits like a hole in the head. Project Veritas' silly tweets protested were in legal terms poppycock and balderdash. In otherwise nonsensical tweet, Project Veritas was right about one thing. Even though we're stopped them from destroying OMG before the election, which is absolutely critical, the main case continues. We must defend OMG from the continued effort to shut it down. We don't know why they want to shut it down, but they do. You'll appreciate, as I did, this inconsequential side fact. I won't out anyone, but the federal security and courthouse staff approached us quietly explaining they were fans of O'Keefe. From a personal perspective, and Jeff then shares a little bit about how he thinks about me. Then he says, you can't win them all, but for the sake of the country, we needed to win this one. We were this time blessed with victory. I should finish by thanking my team, etc. So we have Jeff on the line. Is Jeff on X or just on the phone? He's on the phone? Okay. That works. Hello, Jeff.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Jeff. We're on a live show here, spacious show, covering ActBlue, DNC, and also this courthouse. And I just read your blog post to our listeners, and maybe you want to say a few words. And I also have the transcript here, and I'm going to read a few quotes from the judge. What are your thoughts?
Well, as you noted earlier, I was listening along on the space, and it is a little bit unusual to be a blogging lawyer, I have to admit. I don't normally talk about my clients or their cases on the blog, but this is one of maybe a couple exceptions that I made to that rule, and I was glad to do it. I do want to be careful, though, and sort of stick to what happened at the hearing and what I put in the blog. So why don't you ask me questions?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm just going to read. You know what I want to do, Jeff, is how much time do you have? Do you have like 20 minutes?
For sure.
Okay, and for those of you tuning in, and we're gonna cut this and post this as a video on our social media, but you're live with Jeff Childers. Now, by the way, Jeff, one of my disabilities is I can never pronounce anybody's name. It's Childers, not Childers, correct?
That's right.
I have a photographic memory when it comes to dates, but not names. So I have to say that caveat. People get very offended. I can never remember anyone's name, but that's what makes me me. So here's what I'm going to do. Here's how we're going to do this. I'm a fact guy, and I don't like to opine. In the other directed verdict that we obtained in 2019 in federal court in North Carolina, the federal judge that judge complimented me, and he said, O'Keefe does not opine on what he does. And I agree with that. So I'm just going to go ahead and read the quotes from this transcript, hot off the press, from this bench ruling, and you can react to it or not react to it. Here we go. Page 20. On February 20, this is a federal judge. I'm reading what the judge said. I'm quoting the judge. On February 20th, O'Keefe recorded and published a video. According to the Wetmore Declaration, he was packing up his personal belongings. He said he will, quote, this is the judge quoting me, he will, quote, need a bunch of people around him. Project Veritas alleged the video was published on behalf of OMG and was designed to solicit employees. O'Keefe continues to solicit PV donors, employees, and contractors in violation of his agreement, per the plaintiff. At the hearing, Asha Bolton, that's my executive assistant at the time, testified that she had been O'Keefe's executive assistant for 5 years. She was aware of the video that O'Keefe created addressing the staff, and she only communicated once with him about PV donors.
James, can I jump in right here?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's a little inside baseball. And I don't want to say anything critical of opposing counsel. I think in some ways he did the best he could with a bad case, but they called only two friendly witnesses, right? So they called Barton, the former president of Project Veritas, who took over after they terminated you, and they called their IT director. Apart from that, they called 3 hostile witnesses in their case. Your assistant, right? Your operations manager, and probably worst, or the biggest mistake of all, they called you. Now, there's a couple of rules for litigation. You may have heard the rule, we call it rule number 1, you never ask a witness a question you don't know the answer to.
Right.
They broke that rule too. But they went on to break rule number 2, which is don't call hostile witnesses in your case, because you can't easily control hostile witnesses, and they tend to say things that aren't helpful.
Well, this is the judge. We're looking at a transcript of what the judge said yesterday in what's called a bench ruling, and it's a 90-minute long dialogue, and she does say, and I'm going to read this to you, and I don't know if you've had a chance to read this yet, Jeff, but this is you heard it live yesterday.
Yeah,
but
I was there.
You were there, that's right. So you were there. I was there for some of it, most of it. Okay. So this is a quote from the federal judge in the Project Veritas versus O'Keefe case. Every time I hear that, it's like a sublime. Project Veritas versus O'Keefe. It's a bizarre, but we'll get to that later. Quote, Asha testified that Project Veritas retained donor data in Razor's Edge, that's a CRM like Salesforce, which was password protected, and she did not have access to it. She testified she never took any files, and I found her testimony credible. That's the federal judge. Based upon the testimony at the hearing, I see no evidence that O'Keefe took Razor's Edge database or information or anything of the sort. At the hearing, Barton, that's the board member, apparently people always ask me, does Project Veritas still exist? I said, I don't know. But I'm reading from a court transcript here, so I'm reading from the federal court record. Quote, at the hearing, board member Barton of Project Veritas testified that the solicitation was sent to Tina Hinckley, who is a mother of a Project Veritas board member. Barton testified that Tina Hinckley, who received the email, was the mother of board member, was on donor list. So the Project Veritas has not provided the contact info for Hinckley to O'Keefe. O'Keefe testified he did not know how OMG got Hinckley's email, but he never assessed Razor's Edge. So what's interesting, Jeff, is that Hinckley is the guy, just FYI, who was an executive leader at Veritas I just hired, and they showed an exhibit to me under oath about Hinckley's mother, that I guess the mother of this guy had gotten an email, and they forwarded that. Maybe if you can comment on that, what that means.
Yeah, that was another rough moment for them. So the evidence for everybody who's on the space, the evidence was a boilerplate email that had come from James. It was announcing, hey, I've left Project Veritas and I've started OMG, and we're going to be breaking some great stories, and here's the link to the website.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that they introduced it was an attenuated argument that because somewhere on the website was a donate link, that the email constituted solicitation of a donor, because apparently Mrs. Hinckley gave, $20 sometime. Who knows what? They didn't put that in evidence. Actually, now that I think about it, they never put on any evidence that she had ever donated, but they claimed that. And so it was bad evidence because it required the court to make an inference. It wasn't direct evidence that you solicited anybody. There was no evidence that she made a donation to OMG.
Now, Jeff, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I do want, because this is now part of the federal court record, and they've held me under oath. And by the way, I run from nothing, I hide from nothing. I'd be willing to speak under oath. I do have a brief clip of Mr. Hinckley from the, I guess it was the board audio that was published on YouTube. And this is just, for those of you who don't know who Barry Hinckley is, this is Mr. Hinckley. Listen to this.
Last week when I told James I can no longer follow.
This is a little hard to hear, so I'm going to play it and I'm going to read it out loud, but just bear with me. This is Barry Hinckley, he, him. His pronouns are on LinkedIn. I don't know why that's the key. He, him was from the DNC guy. He did the same thing. I don't know if that's an option on LinkedIn. He accidentally clicked the button, or if it was more intentional. I don't know. But this is Barry Hinckley, who was successful in getting me fired. Listen to this. Quote, and I'm going to read it to you and I'm going to play it. And this came to a head with the last week.
This came to a head with the last week when I told James I could no longer follow his lead. I ran a large company with a lot of employees, and I never lived this lifestyle with black cars running at $250 an hour.
That's Barry Hinckley saying, I never lived this lifestyle with black cars running at $250 an hour.
Constantly picking me up, moving me around.
Constantly cars picking me up and moving me around. You're listening to, for those of you just tuning in, we're really getting into the weeds on this court case because I think it's interesting. I often do get in the weeds, whether it's the FBI case, tortious interference, defamation. I think it's important for us to know our First Amendment rights and how the law works. We're really getting into the weeds on this one. This is Barry Hinckley, he, him, in a board meeting saying, quote, James has cars constantly picking him up and moving him around. You actually can't make this stuff up. This is a executive leader at the company I founded trying to get me fired. Let's see what else Hinckley has to say.
Very expensive accommodations when the rest of the staff are staying at one level.
Expensive accommodations for James O'Keefe when the rest of the staff was staying in different hotel rooms. Let's see what else he says.
All for one and one for all, especially in a nonprofit. I've never seen this division of one person living one way and everyone else living another.
One person living one way and everyone else living another way. So that was Barry Hinckley. And the reason why that's relevant is because Barry Hinckley's mom is now part of the federal court record. Anyway, I wanted to play that for you, Jeff. Any reaction to that? I don't know if you've heard that before, but that was that board meeting.
It sounds like a pack of socialists to me.
Strange.
They want equality of outcome, I guess. But anyway, well, back to Hinckley. I mean, look, their argument was that you had somehow harmed Project Veritas by breaking your employment agreement and soliciting a whole bunch of donors. And they picked the board member's mother, which is just like, it just seems ludicrous. It's my mom.
Strange.
Couldn't they have chosen somebody else?
Do you think that was intentional or an accident, or is it not wise to speculate?
Well, if it was intentional, it was a terrible move because it was just ridiculous. It was clownish. Why bring the mother into it?
The other question, and this is not something for Jeff to answer, my lawyer, but just a question for the audience is, what is this obsession with black cars? Like, I don't understand that. But that's neither here nor there. It's not really a legal issue. It's just something that was brought up. All right, let's go through it. I need another 10 minutes here. Let's go through some more items from this transcript. Again, if you're just tuning in, I'm reading a transcript from a federal judge from yesterday. It's a 55-page transcript, but I've highlighted just a couple things I thought were interesting. Quote, this is a federal judge, New York. As a factual matter, I do not credit Joe Barton, the board member of Project Veritas, who's still on the board of Project Veritas, his testimony that Barton and the board received messages and voicemails from donors that said something to the effect of, I have been solicited by James O'Keefe and I am pulling my donation based on that solicitation. This is the federal judge talking. I don't think that's how people talk. And in any event, Barton's testimony was out-of-court statements made by unknown declarants offered for their truth, which I admitted, but to which I attached little reliability. Given that plaintiffs, she's talking about Project Veritas lawyers, did not present any of the messages themselves as evidence, and one would think emails and voicemails would exist, I am dubious that such specific statements were made. I do not believe that donors pulled their donations in the wake of the split between O'Keefe and the board. I do believe that donors pulled their donations in the wake of the split, but I do not find a preponderance of the evidence that donors said they were doing so because O'Keefe had asked them to. But there is no question O'Keefe communicated with PV donors, as he admitted, and I assume, as I think also did, that some of the people he had asked to support OMG were PV donors. But even accepting all the testimony presented at this hearing, and assuming that O'Keefe solicited and continues to solicit donors, plaintiffs have not shown a likelihood of success. Moreover, plaintiffs have provided no justification for the broad scope of indefinite length of the provision of an injunction. And there is no non-compete provision in O'Keefe's executive agreement. And I'm going to read a couple more quotes and then give Jeff, my lawyer's on the phone here. Even if I were to construe the provisions of James O'Keefe's agreement as a non-compete rather than non-solicitation, the employer has to show the employee was irreplaceable. This is actually really amazing that the judge said this. Listen to this. Quote, the employer, Project Veritas, has to show that the employee, James O'Keefe, was irreplaceable, and his departure caused some special harm to Project Veritas, meaning the services are truly special, unique, or extraordinary, and not merely of high value. Project Veritas argues on the one hand that O'Keefe was special or unique because he's the chairman, CEO, president, and figurehead. See the declaration. On the other hand, they also assert that no one person is Project Veritas. I'm sorry. They assert that, quote, no one person is Project Veritas. A successor CEO, Hannah Giles, for example, this is their quote, Project Veritas, the judge is reading the quote from the Project Veritas motion. Quote, no one person is Project Veritas. Hannah Giles, for example, was as much responsible for the Acorn story that led to the formation of Veritas as O'Keefe was. So Project Veritas also asserts that Project Veritas is strong enough to function without O'Keefe. So plaintiffs have not shown how O'Keefe was irreplaceable exactly. Although he does seem to have been the public face of the company, but assuming he was unique and extraordinary, protection against competition by a former employee whose services are unique and extraordinary can be a legitimate interest. So, Jeff, that was very interesting to me. What is your reaction to that quote?
Yeah, that's a good catch. The judge was sort of rubbing their face in it a little bit, and for the space, I'll explain the background. Whatever happened in February of 23 when they let you go, they did it fast, and they were sloppy. And we've been trying to take advantage of that sloppiness. And one of the things that happened is that, to counter a lot of the criticism they were getting from donors in the media and stuff, they said, nobody is, no one person is irreplaceable at Project Veritas. So we think we can continue to operate just fine without James. Right? And that was the excuse that they were using at the time. And so the judge called them on it. Because in order to get the relief that they were seeking under the employment agreement, they had to show that you were what's called a key employee, where your services, like you read it, are unique or, in essence, irreplaceable. But that's not what they said in February 23 when they were defending, terminating you abruptly. They said you weren't irreplaceable. So she was pointing that out, and if I were on the other side, I would feel properly chagrined.
Yeah, I will opine on this point that there seems to be competing interests. They have a desire to say how worthless I am, and how it's like the labor theory of value in Marxism says that the employees are the valuable things, but they also need to argue that I am irreplaceable to get the relief they're seeking. So it's kind of strange.
Well, I think what it shows is that they were moving fast back in February of 23, and they hadn't thought it all the way through. Because they didn't have time. They wanted to get rid of you quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't war game the whole thing out. And now here we are a year and a half later, and they're having to pay for some of those decisions. They should have probably been a little bit more clever in how they did it. But anyway,
All right,
the judge noticed it.
Couple more quotes here, and then we'll move on to the next thing and get your thoughts on anything else you want to say. It's a 55-page transcript. I got it right before I went on this live Spaces, so I apologize for my lack of preparation here, but I'm just going to read a few more quotes from the federal judge. I'm always in court, by the way. I feel like people always say, are you worried about violence? Are you worried about this? Well, I don't really worry in general. I don't think anxiety is a productive thing, but I think it's actually the court system is how they do this, and most people will bankrupt you. Very difficult to go through something like that. But of course, if you have truth in your heart, you should have nothing to fear. Quote, federal judge. While plaintiffs have shown that O'Keefe took a list of donors who had messaged him about their donations back, there was no evidence that he took a donor list maintained by Project Veritas. Both his assistant and O'Keefe testified they did not have access to the database. In fact, I don't even think I ever logged into the CRM. Plaintiffs who have access to Razor's Edge did not show any contact between Bolton and the assistant. At the hearing, O'Keefe testified he responded to donors in the wake of his suspension by the board. What else do I want to read here? Any other quotes? The IT director, Josh Hughes is his name, also testified that an excerpt of O'Keefe's phone bill, they got my phone Verizon bill and went through it in the courtroom, in February 23, it contained outgoing calls to donors. Assuming these communications count as soliciting, the mere solicitation of a donor standing alone is not enough to show that O'Keefe used trade secrets such as the CRM. See if there's anything else I wanted to highlight, Jeff, from this transcript, which I am reading live. Quote, furthermore, Project Veritas hasn't shown enough regarding future irreparable harm. They have shown that Project Veritas' business has suffered since O'Keefe left, but they have not shown that harm is due to the breaches they allege. So therefore, quote, I'm going to deny the motion. I hope the parties will think about trying to resolve this and will let me know if they think the court mediator or magistrate judge will be helpful. Quote, and I will do an order saying that for the reasons set forth on the record today, I am denying the motion. Okay, that was it. Jeff, without violating attorney-client privilege, what's next?
All right, so the judge promptly set a status conference for us for Friday, and I'm pretty sure that what she's going to do is set schedules for discovery and our answer, and we intend to file an answer with strong counterclaims against Project Veritas, and we'll be setting depositions. Too sweet.
So you're saying that you're going to be setting depositions, as in deposing the Project Veritas board members?
That's right. So we're going to put those folks under oath, and we're going to get them to explain what happened in February of 2023 that led up to your termination, and we're going to get them down on the record.
Did you see Elon Musk's? Actually, you did because you put it in your blog. And Elon Musk, that was interesting to me. Elon Musk, who has reposted a lot of our border work, asked the question, the obvious question, and again, it's hard to know the answer. Is that something that you think needs to be answered about who's behind this or who's funding this? A lot of people ask me that question.
Yeah. So for the space, the question was who's funding this litigation. The reason that Elon and a lot of other people, including myself, are curious is because Project Veritas is broke. I mean, they let go most of their employees, and they're not being very productive, as far as I can tell, on releasing new stories. So anyway, we are very interested in that. And James, I've had litigation before where that issue became a central issue in the case. That if there is an outside party that's funding the litigation, then that party may become what's called a real party in interest, and we would ask the court to make that finding, and then we can conduct discovery against that party.
I see.
We're going to be very interested in trying to get to the bottom of that.
Do you have a legal right to depose former board members or just current ones?
So long as they've got relevant information, then they're fair game, and my intention is to depose everyone who was a board member at that time and participated in your termination.
Is there
That's our
anything else
current
you'd
plan.
like to say to the audience here? Or did anything I didn't ask you?
So I think somebody asked me, I think maybe from the staff, if I had to boil it down, and the judge went on for 90 minutes, which is very unusual.
Why is that? You've mentioned that a few times, Jeff. I know nothing about a preliminary injunction verdict hearing, but why is that unusual? Or how is that unusual?
Well, so a federal judge could have very reasonably denied their motion in a one-sentence order. She could have said the preliminary injunction is denied. And probably she could have written, 8 or 10 pages about it. But to take the time and effort to sit and read into the record a 90-minute, basically analysis of their entire case, and there's, plenty that you didn't talk about. But she basically went through every count in their complaint and explained why, for the most part, there's a few, minor exceptions in my view. But for the most part, she told them why they were likely to fail on each of those counts. And so it just, I don't know. If I was on that side, I would feel like my case just was torpedoed amidships.
Why do you think that the decision was made to do that? It's very fascinating to me. I may not be fascinating to our audience, but why 90-minute exposition?
Something about this case got the judge's interest, and what the folks on the space don't know, and what you may not be thinking about, is that prior to the hearing, we did extensive briefing ahead of time. I don't know. We probably, just our side, we probably wrote over 100 pages total between responses and replies and memoranda and stuff like that. And I think what we have here is a judge who's a reader. And I really appreciate judges that read carefully, because obviously it takes a lot of effort to write all that stuff. And I think coming into the hearing, the judge already had a pretty good idea of how she feels about the whole case. And having taken the effort to, and they put her to this effort to conduct this whole preliminary injunction hearing, I think she wanted to let them know what she thought. After reading all those briefs, listening to all those witnesses, and she's like, "Okay, you got my attention. Now here's what I think." That's my best read about what happened.
And you made the decision to post a blog post about this, Coffee and COVID. It's CNC. That stands for Coffee and COVID, right?
That's right.
All right. And what was going through your mind as an attorney who hasn't really done that before? Like, how are you feeling? How are you? What was it like for you having written this, very personal, almost diary-like blog post after the case yesterday?
Well, it was a little. I think it was a little cathartic for litigating attorneys like me. Preliminary injunction hearing is the next closest thing to a trial, and it's like I don't know. It's like going to combat, maybe, or maybe going to the Olympics. I don't want to draw that too far, but it's a high adrenaline experience, very competitive, and when it's done, you come down off of it. And so I noticed that the story was already trending on Twitter. I mean, Elon Musk noticed it. It was high profile, and I knew that my readers would want to know more about it. And I also thought that I could talk about it without compromising the case, considering that it was already getting so much attention.
Right.
So it was a very cathartic experience for me to write about it.
Yeah, and I'll make a comment that I got to give credit to the federal courtrooms I've been in, because it's a very rational and logical place. State courts might be different, but federal judges are usually very smart, and they really do. It seems like our Article 3 courts in this country, it's the least corrupt branch of government. There still is a lot of rationality in a federal courtroom, and that might surprise people. I don't know if that's true in most federal courtrooms, but it seems to be. That's been my experience. That they do really try to apply the law to the facts.
Yeah, I would go further than that, and I would say that given our pandemic experience, it was the courts that saved us.
Right.
The other two branches were just lost. They were adrift in a sea of incompetence and authoritarianism. And the courts finally hauled us back to reality.
Yep. All right, Jeff. Well, thanks for your time. And we got a busy couple months. I work with a lot of lawyers, and Jeff's a decent guy. And it's interesting in my life. I've been able to surround myself with better people, and that's been one of the blessings of this whole journey. So thank you, Jeff, and talk soon.
Thank you. Take
care. All right, bye-bye. That was Jeff Childers, my lawyer. What an interesting series of events. We're on a live show with my attorney, reading his cathartic blog, Coffee and COVID, it's called. Great writer. I actually knew Jeff before he was my attorney. Reached out to me after the Pfizer story. Okay. We're going to take a real quick break here, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to get into some top clips from the DNC, a tease for tomorrow's video inside the DNC, as well as ActBlue and how you can get involved, followed by your questions. But before that, let's play a brief message. Being proactive about your health is paramount. That's why our OMG supporters, the Wellness Company, is proud to introduce the ultimate first aid emergency kit, meticulously crafted by its chief medical board to support life-saving readiness. When my team and I are out in the field, we always carry our TWC First Aid Emergency Kit because in an emergency, every second counts. The upgraded kit includes essential items like epinephrine for anaphylactic reactions, several common prescription medications, and many vital first aid supplies. Additionally, it features a comprehensive first aid emergency guidebook with over 40 pages of life-saving information. And you can easily replenish your supply at any time. Every kit purchased is eligible for medication replenishments for up to 2 years after purchase. Order your first aid kit now and save 15% by using code OMG for a savings of $60 and savings of over $100 when paired with a purchase of the medical emergency kit. Whether it's ensuring access to medications, personal protective equipment, or other essentials, our commitment is to empower individuals to take control of their health journey. So order your first aid emergency kit now by going to twc.health/OMG. That's twc.health/OMG. That's twc.health/OMG. In today's rapidly evolving healthcare landscape and mysterious shortages of medical... All right, well, I'll tell you what, I bring that emergency medical kit on my sailboat, and I had to use the Band-Aids, and I also... Someone I know got COVID, so we had to use the ivermectin. So it's really helpful, and I travel with it. I do. twc.health/OMG. And then we're going to get to the DNC tapes, which are coming out right now. But before we do that, we got a special guest on, James O'Keefe, Panty Thief. Are you there? Are you there? Oh, he's on. He's on mute, though. So... You want to say hello to the group? He's on. There he is. At JOK Panty Thief. the somehow got my private messages, and you post them, with girlfriends. So, the thing about that is the only way you could have gotten those is from the Project Veritas individuals, and the IT director testified under oath yesterday that he got those, so there's some coordination there. So we're going to find out who you are and put your face all over the internet. That's what I do. I expose the truth. So I don't run from anything, and I don't hide from anything. In fact, I put my name and my face on everything I do. And I think you should do the same. And looks like we're headed towards some depositions. It's going to be really interesting. I love a good deposition. You know why? Because I don't have anything to hide. However, other people have a lot to hide. That's the thing. So we are going to expose what's behind this. That's what people really want to know. And speaking about what's behind this, are we able to throw the DNC clip on the screen here? We're having a little bit of a technical issue, but we want to get to the DNC tape. We have another one coming out tomorrow. Are we able to get that on the screen?
Working on it.
We're working on it. See, we're too busy doing things to have a fancy studio. We're out in the field. We're doing things, but we at least have the quotes from the video. 1 second. Breaking, quote, "I don't think Kamala Harris will win this year," reveals Joyce DeSears, compliance manager for the DNC. DeSears adds, "She doesn't have any accomplishments to speak of, and she's weirdly unpopular." Maybe what we can do is get some people on to get their reaction to this story. So if we can go ahead and load in some people in the section that want to do that. We ready yet? We're still working on that? So just if you guys want to go ahead and request to speak, get your reaction to this DNC compliance manager story, Joyce DeSears, he, him, for the Democratic National Committee. Like Barry Hinckley, he, him. What does that mean, he, him? Is that like they're... Is that, are they clarifying that they're a man? Okay. So what makes someone clarify that they're a man?
Pronouns, apparently.
So it's a decision to say, I am a man.
Yeah, it's kind of,
Because I'm uncertain if I'm a man, or
it's a little bit feminine to me.
I don't know. But if you want to respond to the story, let's hear from you guys. Let's get some people loaded in the queue. Sorry, I'm looking off camera to my team. We have anyone loaded up yet?
Yeah, we have.
We have a lot of people loaded up. We're just trying to get them loaded in.
Miss Lou.
Miss Lou, go ahead. What's your reaction to the story?
Hey, James. So you got a couple stories going here, but I do want to congratulate you on your court win.
Yeah,
Awesome.
well, why don't you talk about your reaction? I don't know if you heard Jeff Childers and I go through the quotes, but what's your thought on the whole situation?
I didn't hear Jeff Childers and you go on the quotes, but I will play catch up. So I should probably drop down and let you get a more current speaker. But on the other hand, I'm such a fan, and I will get TWC with your code.
Yeah. I mean, it's the ivermectin. Everyone's always asking me for ivermectin, and it's
I do want to say one thing about Miss Kamala, as I call her. Trevor, and I want you to urge you to check out his video. Trevor Loudon, as you know, is a commie expert. Just did a video. It's on X, and he talks about her background all the way back from college. She is completely owned by the Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
Completely.
How is she owned by the Chinese?
She has CCP connections all the way.
How?
They have followed her. They have helped her. They helped her get through her various positions in California, where it started. But he goes into the details of it, and I just think it's something that you might want to hear.
If you could just tell our audience in 20 seconds or less, what leads you to say that? What is the evidence of her China connection?
He has the evidence, and I wish I had more memory on the exact details. But her connections, politically and in D.C., are CCP linked.
All right. Well, we'd love to know what those are. I think when we make a statement, we gotta have even for our own purposes. If we're gonna repeat something like that, we probably need to know what that evidence is.
No, absolutely. My apologies. I should.
So we should. We at the O'Keefe Academy, I always teach people with journalism the lead, the who, what, and it's but let's we'll take a look at that. Thank you for that. And then your reaction to this DNC story with Kamala Harris. Have you seen the new? I know you say we have a lot of news. There's always a lot of news at the same time. The DNC story where they say you just put on a performance. They just want their donor fantasy to be fed. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that they're all liars.
Yeah.
They lie about absolutely everything. But this is part of the communist plank. These people aren't messing around, and they're not going to give up power easily.
No.
Money is their thing. Money and power go together. They're twins. They're
So
sidekicks.
is it money and power are equivalent, or which
Money
ones?
and power are equivalent because in their case they need one to get the other.
Right.
Okay, so it's equivalent. But here's the thing: they have, if you read Gramsci, and it's taken decades, and I know you know this, to go all through the institutions.
Mm-hmm.
They have complied, every single institution in this country, from education to entertainment, all throughout the D.C. government, through the, quote, deep state, or blob, as Mike Benz calls it. The one institution that they have not completely overtaken, and is the one thing between us and totalitarianism right now, or a communist takeover, because 2020 was a coup, is the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. Which is why they're going after it so vehemently.
Mm-hmm. Well, There's a lot to say about that. Thank you for your comment. I appreciate that, and nice talking to you. Let's go to JP. Are you still there, JP?
Yeah, I'm still here. And first, thank you for everything that you've done. I mean, you've opened a lot of eyes, and there's a lot of people who appreciate the hard work that you've put in. Now, as far as Kamala Harris goes, I watched her Atlanta rally last night, and you watch the message, and what she's really good at is being a chameleon, because when you watch the white dudes for Kamala on Zoom, and you watch all these other things, she panders to communities, and it's becoming more and more obvious every single day. They ask her what she's going to do to fix the economy, and she talks more in a circle than Circle Back Jen did, and she doesn't really have answers for anything, and that's it. She has accomplished nothing. She was the border czar. The border's a disaster because of her and her loose policies, and I think that Americans are starting to see this front and center, and it's really bad. I mean, she put a free concert and offered pizza for everybody to show up, and then as soon as that was over, everybody was leaving. She doesn't have any power, and that's just it. She just sits there and giggles, and she's very condescending and very arrogant. Given her past as a attorney general in California, DA in San Francisco, and all the disastrous things that she did, 3 strikes and you're out was partly because of her. Falsely incriminating, having evidence that would exonerate someone and withholding it until she's told to present it, giving people unreasonable, community service so they can have free labor in California. Her whole life has been a disaster in the public eye, and I think people are finally starting to see that. So now she's been put on the up front.
Do you think it's a sugar high, or do you think that in about a week or two she's going to start facing more skepticism and criticism from the media?
I think she's going to start to. I think as people start to get confident and knowing those things, I think it's one of those things too. I really do believe in the art of war, and why would you destroy an enemy that's in the process of destroying themselves? And one thing I've learned through life is sometimes you just got to let someone talk long enough and they destroy themselves, and that's exactly what is happening right now.
Thank you for the comment. We're going to go to a few more people, and then we're going to get to ActBlue. One of the main things that's happened the last week is ActBlue, trying to get you guys activated. Everyone's been requesting data, and we're going to get to that here in a minute, but all of this data from the FEC showing that there's all this money raised for Kamala. I think it's $200 million. Maybe it's legit, maybe it's not. But what we do know is that there's data anomalies showing people who can't afford to do donating thousands of times. So we're trying to get to the bottom of that story. We need your help. We're going to pay you to do that story. Just like the swipers, we're now going to pay citizen journalists to knock on doors. And I'm going to equip you, the OMG Citizen Journalism Army, to go knock on doors, talk to these people. They're victims. They're Democratic donors who are victims of what appears to be a money laundering scheme. And look at their bank records. See if they can invite you into your house, invite you into their house. I did this in New Jersey, and a woman showed me her bank statement. And let's try to show that they didn't make these donations. And it's going to be up to you. Congress isn't going to do anything, even though we don't have subpoena power. The hidden camera has a power. It's the hidden camera is mightier than the subpoena. That's what I like to say. I think that's the first time I ever said that. The pen is mightier than the sword. The hidden camera is mightier than the subpoena. That's definitely a true statement. In fact, the Congress people I talk to, they actually have, they're so resigned to how little power they actually have. They have all told me, and I won't name names, because a couple people are good people, but they're just saying, they'll just evade us. They won't answer the question. But a hidden camera, they can't evade you. They'll be honest. So we'll pay you $3,000 if you go out and get that story of you knocking on someone's door, and then you have to get their consent, show the bank statement. You might not even need to use a hidden camera in this case, because they're people who are victims of a money laundering scheme. Now, the money wasn't taken from them, but their name is being used. So we're working on getting you that data, and we're going to show you how to do that here once we get the technical issues resolved. But let's go to another couple callers. Let's go to IT Attack. You're live. IT Attack, going once, going twice. Let's go to Aerodynamic. You're live.
Hi, good afternoon. I just want to say, first of all, I just really appreciate your integrity in this whole thing, even to in the video, I think it was talked about earlier as well, but you know, that you talked about that you were at a place where you had to do a deal on that specific case because it's exhausting, you know. And I live in Texas now, but I grew up in Washington State and went through a trial process the end of my teenage years and into my 20s, and it took almost 2 years. And there were several other families involved, and we held out till the end. And we ended up being a precedent-setting case. But I know that that's just the game, and I think a lot of people listening understand that. I mean, a lot of the game is the appeals and the delays and everything they can do to basically get you to give up. So I just wanted to thank you personally. I mean, it just random that I happened to see this audio conference call going on right after I watched the video and popped in and listened. So
Well, I mean, I'll tell you that thank you for bringing that up. I mean, you said you went through something similar in your life, and I'd like to hear from you to the extent you're willing to share. But I was in court, and without getting into the details, it was a tough decision because, you know, what society wants you to do is, and this is a choice we all have to make. I think every day. This is the issue of our time. Really, is, you know, do you choose to live by your principles, or do you quote unquote sell out to quote unquote feed your family, whatever that means, by the way. I don't know if there's going to be food shortages or wars coming up. But I am too conflicted by this, and in this way, it's that the amount of money required to pay lawyers is beyond what anybody could possibly imagine. And the more corrupt the legal system becomes, the more lawyers profit off of it. So it's almost like you have to choose a life of pain, and you have to choose a life or you have to choose the hard path. But what was going through my mind, and I've been through this down this road before, is that I cannot live with myself or sleep. A weight was lifted off my shoulders, if you will, even though it's more painful to choose one path. For me, it was less psychologically painful because I have a clean conscience. And that sounds like a cliche, but if you think about it, like, you know, your conscience shines like a clear mountain lake, even though you are called to the witness stand and being cross-examined, and it's no one likes that, by the way. I don't care how innocent you are. It's a perjury trap or whatever the heck they could throw at you. I've been through it many times, but it's more. It's less painful to go through that than to compromise on your values. And I think we are all faced with this choice. I would even say Americans are faced with this choice every day. So for me, it was I could not compromise on that and restrict my speech. And I at the very last second, I decided to decline the deal, and it was immediately called on the witness stand. But I felt the weight lifted, actually, when I made that decision. A major weight off my shoulders was lifted in that moment. Win or lose, it wasn't about winning or losing. It was about I had to do the right thing. That's what went through my mind, but I want to hear from you. What went through your mind when you went through what you did?
So my scenario was a child molestation case, and it happened when I was when I was 12 years old, and it happened to other kids around that age, and it came out about 6 years later, and it started a whole process. So there were, I think, several other families involved, and they're all through all the different appeals processes and things that happened. I mean, we were interviewed by the other teams of lawyers who were these frat boy douchebags. I swear, it was wild. I couldn't believe these were guys defending. And but they just run the families through the ringer, all this stuff to make it. And part of the process was, I'll throw this anecdote in here. This is in Washington State, mind you. And the way it ended at the end of it, I believe it was Scott O'Toole, who was the prosecuting attorney. It was the first time in Washington State history that someone who had been accused of those things had actually pled guilty as charged. And he got 23 to life, and they say they almost never get out because it's 100% repeat offense rate. And so they have options for parole, but they almost never let him out. And so during that process, though, I mean, towards the very end, they wanted to settle. They initially tried to settle for pleading guilty to 6 out of 10 charges. We said no, and then a couple months later, they said 4 out of 10. And the other family, like their son had just gone through it. He was 12 years old, and he had just gone through it, so it was tearing their family apart. He dropped out of school. It was affecting their whole community. So they were ready to be done. And I just, in that place, like similar to what you're saying, I'm like, no, we have all the evidence here. Like, there's no way we're going to lose. This is the only way is they can demoralize us. Like, we have to stick it out. And they wouldn't give in unless I was on the same page, and I wasn't. And so we ended up holding out, and it was a huge, huge victory, I think, for all of us, just in our own personal lives and for the state.
Well, it was like win or lose. It's not about winning and losing in that sense. It's you did the right thing and you can live with yourself. Did you feel that at all?
Oh yeah, no, 100%. I mean, they did too. I mean, they thanked me for just because they were going through more than I was. I mean, I was dealing with my own things and depression and counseling, and I just got voted freshman class ASB president in college, and I'm dropping out of classes. I'm dealing with depression, going through this whole thing. But they had, their whole family was affected, so they had a lot more there. But to be able to have them feel the same way, to be glad that they just stuck it out and stood on what they knew was true, and not to get defeated by the system and all the bullshit games that they're trying to play to get you to give up. That's the biggest thing. That's just such a, excuse my language, it's such a mind fuck. Like, people don't realize, like, that's the games they play, and that it's horrible, and it makes you feel bad for sticking to what you know is true. So yeah, it definitely feels good to stick to what you know is true the whole time, and to see it play out and win in such an incredible way.
There was a lot of fear, I think, in people. I find people to be extremely scared constantly, and usually it's the fear of the unknown. But I've found in court, and I've been fortunate and unfortunate to have been through a lot of this. In courtrooms, what happens is there's a lot of emotion and BS and illogic and irrationality thrown at you. The media is filled with this. We are all familiar with it. But when you get to courtrooms, there's a part of the process where, especially when you're in front of a judge and a jury, that kind of melts away. They kind of have to actually be logical. And if you go the distance, to quote Rocky Balboa in the movie Rocky, if you actually are willing to go the distance and say, I am willing to be bloodied and crucified, or whatever the metaphor you want to use here, I'm willing to go the distance and get knocked out, you're probably going to win. I don't mean legally per se. Yes, you may win legally, but I mean you're going to be the you're going to be the victor. But you have to be willing to go the distance, and that's a choice of the will, and a choice that you have to make, and that really is the choice that we Americans must make. We have to go the distance. So, okay, you want to crucify me? Go ahead, go crucify me. What are you going to win by crucifying me? Are you going to win by doing that? No, you're not going to win by doing that. You're going to lose by doing that. By this is a theme in Christianity. It's a theme in other things as well. It's a theme in our politics and our psychology. Some people just want to crucify other people. People say, why do you want to do that? People say, James, why are these people doing that? Why are they doing that? That's the question I get asked every day. Why? I said, if I need to explain to you why some people want to crucify the people, you can figure that out for yourself. It's envy is the root of all evil. Some people covet the things they don't have. Some people just want to tear other people down. And there are a lot of people not like that. And you got to find the good people, the courageous people. Let's focus on the good. Let's focus on the courageous. Let's focus on the citizen journalists that have signed up. We've had, 80 people? No, now 100. I'm talking to my staff off camera. 100 people have signed up to be swipers. And what's remarkable about this is that these are brave, talented people that haven't received any training. And they're going out there like this woman who did the tape of Kamala Harris, got a postcard in the mail trying to intimidate her using racial undertones, and without giving away too much, we had a conversation and there was some fear. And I said, listen, let's go public with this, and they're not going to want to bring more attention to it. So we got to be willing to go the distance. And that's what we got to do. And speaking of all these whistleblowers, it's not just swipers. It's people on Signal messaging us. It's people on DMs messaging us from within the Secret Service, Border Patrol, FBI agents. The FBI tried to shut me down by coming into my home and taking my phones. Okay? And they got into my phone because I logged in to call my attorney, and then they snatched the phone out of my hand. And I can't believe they did that. But there is a new phone called the Unplugged.com/OMG, Unplugged phone, Eric Prince, Unplugged.com/OMG. And now we use this phone. You can download Signal on this phone. There's no advertising ID. There's no way for advertisers to get in the phone. It's a closed circuit phone that I use, that you can use, take your privacy back. We're gonna talk about the phone, and then we are going to get to ActBlue. Thank you so much for your call, and thanks for your comments about that court case. I've had it with all my personal and private information being exposed and exploited by big tech and big government. So I'm joining my friend Eric Prince, and I'm switching to my new Unplugged phone. Protect your privacy. Get your very own Unplugged phone. Go to unplugged.com/OMG. That's unplugged.com/OMG. Take your privacy back. Unplugged.com/OMG. Unplugged.com/OMG. Closed circuit. You can message these sources. I mean, we use it here. And we'll see if the other companies follow suit, or whether Elon's going to do something similar. But for now, it's Eric Prince, the Unplugged phone. Let's now get to ActBlue. If we can pull up that example. For those of you listening, we've gotten thousands of messages from people, hundreds, thousands of people asking, how do you get the data in your neighborhood to go track down these money laundering things? So we're going to make a video about this, put it online, but I'm going to talk you through it. For those listening, let's say you want to go knock on a door in your neighborhood and expose the ActBlue situation. Election Watch is the name of the organization. Peter Bernager. It's called smurfing. Now, I don't agree with Peter on this point. I wouldn't call them smurfs. It sounds like they're bad guys. They're actually victims. You go to electionwatch.com, and do we have this loaded up in the screen? Okay, you can see it on YouTube. Go to electionwatch.com. What's the name of the website for the URL? Electionwatch.info. .info, not .com. Pardon me. Electionwatch.info. And you're going to scroll down and see a map of the United States. You can do this with me as you're listening if you want, if you're in front of a computer. And it says smurfing data by state. You're going to click on the state in question. Let's say it's Florida. So click on Florida, and you will see the top names of the number of transactions and the total amount given at the very top. And this is organized by total number of transactions first, correct? So you see Carl Elmelson, this is in Stewart, 52,000 transactions. That's insane. 387,000. Nobody donated 53,000 times. That's just not possible. And it goes down there, 17,000 transactions, 16,000 transactions. Look at all of this. There's an advanced search feature, so you click on the gear, advanced search, and when you get to that drop-down menu, you can go ahead and type in a zip code. So if you live in Florida, your zip code is 33981, for example, and then it takes you to all the people in your neighborhood. So all of you could do this. You always say, what can I do? I get all these messages. James, I live in Mississippi. What can I do? If you ever need someone in Arlington, Virginia. I mean, I have like 10,000 of these messages, and there's no way that I can be the editor-in-chief for 10,000 people. So instead of you asking me what you can do, here's what you can do. You can go to electionwatch.info. We'll post this online so you can follow along, but you can click on that drop-down menu, go to the gear, type in your zip code, knock on these people's doors. You know, you don't even need a hidden camera. Just use your iPhone or your Android and say, hey, I want to ask you about this. You seem to be a victim of a money laundering scheme. Can I come in for a minute? I'm a journalist. I'm a citizen journalist. I know James O'Keefe, OMG, and I'd like to talk to you and see if you have their permission. Come in there and ask to see their bank statement. Get a copy of their bank statement. Make sure it's redacted. And I will personally pay you $3,000 for that video. So let's see how many of you want to do that. And we're going to go ahead and all of us are going to get to the bottom of what is behind this. Is it China money? Is it Hans, what is his name? Heiborg, the Swiss billionaire guy? Is it Stripe.com? I don't know. I know that ActBlue uses Stripe, and I know ActBlue doesn't have 3 numbers on the back of the credit card. But let's do this. The camera is mightier than the subpoena. So that's that. ActBlue. Okay, good. And I think we're just going to go for another maybe 10 minutes on the we got a lot done on the show today. But let's go ahead and go to some more people in the audience. I'd love to hear more from the audience. Let's get some more people queued up into queue. Red? Okay, Red, you're live. What's up? What's on your mind?
I I saw your video, I don't know, was it 5-6 months ago when you first started uncovering this? And I went and recently watched it, and I've just been thinking about it, and, all that money that was withheld from the Biden, the 90 million or whatever, it seems like that number seemed to have matched the first, hours of donations to, the Kamala campaign. So I'm just trying to understand, how would that even be traced? With you mask the IP address when you're submitting it, they have bots doing it from China or whatever, but how would you even end up tracing that? Clearly it's not, nobody can donate 53,000 times a day or within a span or period, so I'm trying to understand how that would even work. Or I know there's a couple state AGs investigating it, and I don't know.
These are great questions. These are questions that we need to get the answers to. Question is, how can someone donate 60,000 times? There's something called yesterday we spoke to a gentleman about, and I forgot the term, but it's when you donate and then you get reimbursed, there's a take back or a clawback. I forgot the terminology, but money laundering, if you go to Starbucks and you buy a coffee and you get the reimbursed, there's something, I forgot how that works, but there's a way you can launder money through a refund. I don't exactly know. I'm going to find out how that works, but that's one theory for how they're doing this. One of the biggest stories of the election. I thought it was just a data anomaly on the FEC website. I thought it was a glitch. That's what I thought, but maybe it's more than that. Okay, let's go to another speaker. Do we have another one in the queue?
Yeah. ASOBs.
ASOBs, you're live.
Hey James, thanks for having me up here. Just wanted to come up here real quick and talk a little bit about this. I ended up getting inspired actually from some of your videos, researching these transactions, and some other people posting about it. Ended up going around in my city to about a dozen different people that showed up on the FEC website as large volume and dollar donors, and found some definitely interesting stuff that seems to be in line with what you found. One thing I did find that I'm curious on your thoughts on is it seemed like in my area, at least one of the biggest ones with 16,000 donations since January of last year, so about a year and a half, and $240,000. He ended up mainly going through WinRed. And so I'm curious as to what your thoughts are about that, because it seems like there were quite a few people that I talked about or talked with that were through ActBlue that had these fraudulent transactions, but also WinRed. And I'm wondering, why do you think it's happening with both sides?
Yeah, we actually did a video on WinRed last year. Spoke to a woman in New Jersey, and there seems to be a problem with that too. And it doesn't seem to be to the degree of ActBlue, but it's certainly happening. We've reached out to for WinRed's CEO for comment, have not heard back from him. What's remarkable is nobody will talk to us about this. The answer is, I don't know. And sometimes it's okay to say I don't know. It seems like everyone in politics wants to give you the answer. Here's what I think. I will not do that. I don't know. I'm trying to find. The answer is I'm trying to find out. And why is it happening with WinRed? I don't know. Why is it? Where's the money coming from? I don't know. The only way we're going to find this out, and I'm going to consider everyone on this space as part of my citizen journalism army, is if all of you, not all of you, if 0.1% of you, that's 1 out of 1,000, by the way, is that correct? 0.1%?
What's that?
1 out of 1,000. 0.1% is 1 out of 1,000. 1% is 1 out of 100.
Yeah.
Okay, let's call it with it. If 1 out of 1,000 of you go knock on these people's doors, ask to see their bank statements, and let's say that equates to, I'm just making this up, 50 of you, and you put those videos, we produce them together, we put them online. By the way, I'll pay every single one of you to do that once you provide the video with me showing that they show the bank statement and all that. I guarantee you that will cause things to happen. That'll cause state lawmakers will get involved, the Attorney General of whatever, Texas will get involved, the Congressional Committee will get involved. Like, everything will happen, but you guys need to go do this because I'm but one man. And I can guarantee you that I'm doing everything in my power. Next week we have a video coming out about ActBlue, but I need you. Does that make sense? So I want to stop complaining about this. And I want to start doing something about it. And this is the future, everyone. The future is you. Stop complaining about the media and start becoming the media. Any questions? We will answer your questions because we're going to post that election. And Peter Benager, what a great guy. He's doing this just because he cares about the country. He's currently working on an updated data set to present day. We're going to get that to you next week. That's my commitment to you. We're going to get updated data in your zip code next week. I'm really excited to get to the bottom of this. What a horrible time to be alive. What an amazing time to be alive. Let's go to one or two more people, and then we're going to end a little early today because I got to get back to work. Let's go to Chris. Chris, is that Chris Hunter on?
Chris Hunter.
Oh, hey, Chris. How are you?
Doing good, sir. How are you doing?
Good, good. It's nice to hear your voice again. What's your reaction to either the court case against me, the Kamala thing, or the ActBlue money laundering circumstances?
I'm going to go with ActBlue for $100.
ActBlue for $100.
I help Peter out once in a while with his stuff there, and I found through a tip that Sam Brown from Nevada was getting money from ActBlue via WinRed.
Strange.
And when we brought that to the attention, that all got wiped off the internet. So there's definitely a connection there. And I've also given you guys a huge data set that you'll be able to use for this. And thank you for your help.
Thank you, Chris. Chris and I worked on a project in California briefly, and let us know, Chris, about that data set. We need all the help we can get. Thank you. Okay, let's go to who haven't we heard from in the queue?
Brig.
Let's go to Brig.
Hi, thanks for bringing me on. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
So, you kind of just barely answered a tiny bit of the question that I have, but my question on this ActBlue thing, and I do want to get involved in this, and I will. But what is the long-term strategy? If we're just going to be getting videos and you're going to be posting them online, or even I'm going to be posting them online, and we're just we are just still complaining if we're just posting them to our social media feeds and saying, yeah, ActBlue is laundering money. But is there a longer term or bigger strategy where we actually do take those videos and the names of the people and the evidence to our attorney generals and because they're the only ones that really have a way to get involved legally, unless there's going to be a class action lawsuit. I guess that's my question. Is there a class action lawsuit that's a long-term strategy, or is the long-term strategy to go to our various attorney generals and try to get them involved, or does OMG have some sort of a strategy where they've already got attorney generals lined up ready to do this if the evidence is provided to them?
Yeah, it's a good question, but let me challenge you a little bit because you're saying that posting video. I want to make sure I quote you accurately. You're saying posting videos is just complaining. I forgot what you said there. Just posting all the videos to social.
Yeah, like we can go and post the evidence of money laundering by ActBlue or WinRed or anybody. We can go post it online and get our various followers energized, and yet they're just going to be complaining too if there's not a target to shoot towards. Where we're saying we're getting this information and we're going to take this information to an attorney general or to even our local election officials and say, look, these people did not really donate this money. There's some sort of fraud going on here. Are we going to get the law involved in some way, shape, or form, or are we just...
Well, but you don't have to worry about getting the law involved if you get the truth and when you post it to OMG's channel. So many people will see it that the law enforcement agents will naturally get involved. I've never had to knock on the door of an attorney general. They're knocking on my door now. Congress is reaching out to me. Investigators in states are begging for information. But you have something that those people don't have. I know it's weird. You'd think like the Inspector General of like Kansas would be doing this or something. I don't mean to pick on Kansas, but
Yeah,
you know, I don't know. The Inspector General of blah, blah, blah state. You'd think that they don't do it. That's a larger conversation. But I think your question is so important, and I'm happy that you asked it, because I'm trying to shift your mindset here. Everyone wants, it's almost like people want people think the solution is politics. The law enforcement agency needs to get involved. But the law enforcement agencies and the legislators don't have any ammunition. They don't have the evidence. They can't get the evidence because they don't do this. So the only
I guess
thing.
my question is, if we're just posting it to OMG, and yeah, they're knocking on your doors, but what if our local inspector generals or attorney generals don't want to get involved? I live in Utah, which is, people think it's a deep red state, but it's the bluest deep red state in the nation. There's more people TDS here than anybody I've ever met, anywhere I've ever gone. I've been in basically every state in the nation except for Hawaii. But I'm not seeing how. I guess I'm trying to find the bridge from where we get this information. We have the data. How do we get it in their hands, or are you saying they are going to come to you naturally?
They'll come to us naturally, 100%. Guarantee it. Guarantee it. You know why? Because they already have. Like, I mean, like yesterday I had a meeting with various congressional people, and they can't. They need the ammunition. They law enforcement agencies need. And politics is downstream from culture. Politics is downstream from media. People don't do anything unless the media covers it. In fact, don't ever get in between a congressman and a video camera or a news camera or a CNN camera. And congressional investigators, most of the people, particularly in the United States Senate, don't even have subpoena power. So when they write letters to these agencies, they're not actually, they don't have any power. The power is by virtue of the fact the media covers the letter. So really the real power comes in exposure. And that's the mindset I'm trying to get you guys to understand. The exposure is the end itself. And you guys, we want to jail these people. Well, they want to jail you, and you want to jail them. Everyone wants everyone in jail. That's not going to work out so well.
No, I don't think so.
But the real power, the real power is in the sunlight itself. And if we can get ourselves in the mindset where everyone is shining a light and actually doing the heroic work of knocking on doors, recording the answers, and getting that out into the ether, thanks to Elon, now we can do that pretty effectively, by the way. I think that's step one. Let's get through that part of the process. Let's knock on all these doors, and then let's go to step two about let's get the lawmakers involved. But because the lawmakers can't do anything, the law enforcement agencies can't do anything without evidence. And it's not going to be the subpoena that gets it. It's going to be journalism that changes the world, not government.
I guess my biggest question was, and I think you've answered it, and that is, are we individually going to have to go and find our own, whoever's enforcing or looking into this in, say, my zip code or my state? Are we going to have to go and find those people and present our evidence to them? Fill out an affidavit, whatever, that, we got this evidence.
It's possible. I mean, I could help you. OMG could help you with that. I mean, we could do that. You could do that. We could do that together. If you're the citizen journalist that's providing this information to you, like I said, we'll pay you $3,000 plus, something above and beyond that. We're happy to help you with that part of the process, or you could do that and we can equip you. It's really your choice. But at the end of the day, I think you and I would agree. I would love to see what these Smurfs are going to say when the bank records show that they didn't make those donations to ActBlue, but the FEC is saying. I think we need those bank records. And let's go ahead and redact those bank records. Let's get the consent of the victim, and let's publish those records for the world to see. And then everything will fall into place. Whatever is meant to come to pass will come to pass. Do any of these people have any balls to investigate? Probably not, but some of them do. I mean, the Texas investigative people seem like they've got some brass cojones, huevos, eggs, balls. I don't know. What's a woman? Brass balls, and then the women say, "Well, I don't have balls." Okay, huevos. Either way, testicular fortitude. Testicular fortitude is the terminology. Does that answer your question? No, I'm not trying to be adversarial with you. I'm just trying to be helpful. Does that answer your question, or does it make sense?
It does answer my question, and I want to say thank you for what you're doing. I think it's a service to humanity, not just to the Trump side or any side. I think you're doing a service to humanity to bring this stuff to light. And one last thing, and I'll sign off. I just signed on to YouTube with a account that was not following you. I do follow you on YouTube, but I just signed on to YouTube with an account that is not following you. And I'm pretty sure OMG is being shadow banned. I mean, I have to go in and actually find out who you are and find
I know.
It's like, so,
I know.
so you know.
I know, and thank you for that. And by the way, I appreciate you because I feel like we accomplished a lot in these 10 minutes, and you're just articulating and voicing what a lot of people are feeling, which is frustration and futility and confusion, and it's I understand, but we have to change our mindset, and the mindset has to be that sunlight and investigative exposures are the most powerful thing that we can do, and everything is downstream from that. And I'm really excited about next week because, well, tomorrow we're breaking a new story about the DNC guy, and that's always exciting to hear from the insiders at the DNC about Kamala Harris. That's tomorrow. But next week we're going to break our next ActBlue story. We're going to have new data for all of you. We're going to go on a major push. We're going to do this together. We're going to empower all of you to be the citizen investigators, and we're going to compensate you for it. Because I do recognize that I have a large audience, and that allows me to monetize in a way you guys can't. So I'm going to pay you. And we're going to get to this. We're going to do this together as a team. We're all more powerful because you guys are going to be out there looking at things I haven't seen. But I will also be knocking on doors myself, breaking my own stories to try to help coach you. And we're going to try to get to the bottom of where is this money coming from? And how are they managing to get all these people to donate thousands of times? We're going to get to the truth. We're going to do it together. Go ahead.
So one last thing I would say, I look forward to a fairly in-depth tutorial of where to get the data, how to find the data. You just really showed us briefly on YouTube. It's not, by the way, in sync with this space. It's probably 15 or 20 seconds behind this space being broadcast. But where to get the data, where to put in the places where it's in our general region that we're willing to go and find these people. Obviously, find the ones that look like they're fraudulent and go start knocking on doors.
Yep.
Does that data have addresses? Does that data have names? In other words, are we just going to be walking up and
we're going to go ahead and we'll go ahead and post a clip from this space that shows the tutorial. Now keep in mind that data is about a year old, but you can still use that data. It's important because it was fraud or possible money laundering, even if it's a year ago. And we'll post that tutorial to X, and it'll answer all your questions. And then next week we're going to post updated data. So if you have any issues, we have a very small team, but I trust the team that I have. So I apologize to all of you. We get thousands of messages. We try to read them all. The best thing you can do for us, for all of you people listening, is like, I messaged OMG and he never responded. And that's one thing we get all the time. And we do the best we can. But I would say instead of saying he didn't respond, do your best to go out and do the thing and we'll respond. Is that fair? Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
My team is laughing because I'm speaking. I'm saying what they're thinking.
Absolutely.
So you guys say, he never responded to me. It's like, well, go do the thing, and then we'll respond to you. Does that make sense? Give it the college try. Like, knock on the door with your iPhone and say, hey, ma'am, I'm a reporter. I'd love to get your comment on this. And just do the best you can. Even if you fail, you won't fail. Even if you can't possibly... Listen, if you just show up and talk to the person, you'll be successful. So if you do that, I promise that I will respond. Is that fair? And then in terms of how they get involved, it's OMG, what's the URL? O'KeefeMediaGroup.com/swiper. Swiper is the word where you can send the stuff, talk to us, everything. And then you can signal us when you have the content. And to submit the video,
go to O'KeefeMediaGroup.com.
just on our website, O'KeefeMediaGroup.com, there's a submission page. And then you'll get a response from us. The ball, ladies and gentlemen, is in your court. And with that, that's the ending of the show. I'll see you next week, and we'll post this ActBlue stuff.